to my kitchen in sunny Los Angeles, California. I'm Christina Xenos. I'm a chef and the co-author of Opa, the Healthy Greek Cookbook. And today we're going to make one of my favorite recipes from the book for Kolokithokeftedes. Now, you've probably all had them before. I love eating them every time I go to Greece, sitting by the seaside at a nice taverna. Traditionally, they're fried though, and that can take a lot of time when you're hovering over the stove trying to deep fry these patties. So today we're gonna make it easier, and we're gonna lighten them up a little bit by baking them instead. To start out with the recipe, we have a few simple ingredients. I have 1.5 pounds of zucchini that I've grated into a strainer. And in the strainer, I've also added some cheesecloth, which will help me squeeze out all the water. And if you've ever done this before with either zucchini or cucumber, you know that they're made mostly of water. So we're gonna get a lot of that out. We don't want our patties to be soggy. I also have about a cup of feta cheese. I have some dill, and if you don't like dill, you can use another herb like parsley or mint. I have some scallions, the white parts and the green parts. I have breadcrumbs, an egg, and some kefalotidi. Kefalotidi is a hard, salty cheese, and if you don't have it or you can't access it easily, you can always use something like a pecorino romano. It makes a good substitute, and it's a lot easier to find. So I've already started grating my zucchini into the strainer, but I use a handheld grater. You can also use a box grater, and I'm using about this size of a grate. Now, a lot of people like to use their food processor, which is totally fine, but you wanna use the grating blade on that because the texture of the zucchini really matters. You don't wanna put it into your food processor with just the regular blade, because that will just make it really mushy. So I'm just going to grate this into the bowl. I love making this recipe for parties because everyone loves them. They're always the first thing to disappear on my mezze spread. And I love serving them also with tzatziki because it makes such a wonderful combination with the tanginess of the yogurt with the Kolokithokeftedes. If you want to know why they're called Kolokithokeftedes, keftedes, we know, are traditional Greek meatballs. And then kolokithi is the Greek word for zucchini or squash. So you put those together, and then you have Kolokithokeftedes. Now, I've kind of been draining this for a little while. I added about a teaspoon of salt to the zucchini that I had previously grated because the salt is gonna help it release the water. And if it needs some help, all you gotta do is kind of use your fist, your hands, just get in there, and if you kind of squash it up, it's gonna really help it along. You see that? And then all you have to do is this is why I love using the cheesecloth, because all you have to do is kind of bring it all together, and then you squeeze and see how much water is, can you believe that? See how much water is coming out of there. So I'm just squeezing and squeezing, and I want to get as much out as I possibly can, again, because I don't want my patties to be soggy. So that is pretty good. All right, so I got most of that out, and now I have a large bowl that I'm going to start combining my ingredients in. And oh, my AirPod is falling out. All right, so we're just gonna put this in here. And it really, you think 1.5 pounds of zucchini is a lot, but it really just kind of all shrinks down in there. So I have a large bowl that I'm combining all my ingredients in. So right in here, I have the zucchini for the base. And then we have 1 clove of garlic. Now you can chop it up with your knife, but I love using a microplane because it finely grates the garlic in there, and it's finer than what I want to do spending my time chopping. So that's super easy. I love microplaning lemon, like lemon zest, lime zest. I love it for garlic. It's so great when you're finely grating it over fish. It makes it kind of just distribute a lot more evenly. So to this bowl, I'm gonna add my feta. I didn't crumble it up beforehand because you'll see, we're really gonna get in there and kind of smush everything together. Also my dill, and then my scallions, my kefalotidi, my breadcrumbs. I love using panko because it makes I like the texture better. I think it's a lot kind of, I don't want to say fluffier, but it makes a nicer crunch, and it combines better into the patty. And also I have 1 egg. Now it's always good to have a second egg handy, just in case the texture doesn't quite come together with just the one, then you can add the second. So now I'm going to use my hands, and I'm going to combine everything together. I wanted to come up with this recipe just because I love serving these at parties, and I love having an option to make a batch of them, and I like freezing them and having them on hand for when company comes over, because like any Greek family, we get a lot of unexpected company. We get family coming over on Sundays, if they're in the neighborhood especially, and I like to have something ready to pull out. And the best thing about these is that you can make them in advance and then cook them, cool them, and then you freeze them, and they're just ready to go. They hold up really, really well in the freezer. So it's nice too, if you're making a batch, you can double it super easily and just have some extras for when your friends come over. But they usually in our house don't last very long because we're always eating them. So I've combined everything together, and you'll know when it's done. You want all your feta, you don't want big chunks of feta in there. You want it pretty broken up, unless you do. I mean, you want a more rustic texture, but you also want to make sure that you don't make each individual one too heavy, but you want it to be able to stick together. So that's kind of what you're going for. If it's too wet, you can always add more breadcrumbs. That will help bring it together a little bit more. And if it feels dry, just add another egg. Okay, at this point, if you haven't preheated your oven yet, it's a good time to set your oven to 375. You can use your convection setting if you have it, or otherwise just bake it normally at 375. And we're gonna prepare our baking sheet. I have a normal half sheet pan. I've set in a piece of parchment, which is going to help the Kolokithokeftedes not stick to the parchment, or not stick to the baking sheet. And I'm gonna actually use a bit of olive oil to kind of help it out a little bit more, because sometimes they can get a little bit sticky, and if I'm making a bunch of these, I don't want them to stick. So I just, if you have baking spray, you can do that as well, but I just, olive oil is super easy, and I'm just using a silicone brush, or you can use a natural bristle brush just to just make this super duper non-stick, and that will help. So I'm going to use this ice cream scooper or scooper just to portion out my Kolokithokeftedes, because I want them to be pretty. I want everything to be uniform in size. So all I do is make it's about the size of a golf ball, and I'm gonna set it down on my baking sheet, and then I just press it down a little bit. And then you can, if you're really type A like I am, you can kind of finesse them a little bit more. But I mean, if I'm catering a big party, I want everything to be super pretty. Sometimes if I'm doing these as a past hors d'oeuvre, I like to spoon the tzatziki right on top of them and kind of just serve them as a canapé, just like that. You also can make, you can make them larger. So I have a lot of personal chef clients in Los Angeles, and sometimes they want more of something like a veggie burger. So I'll put together a much larger patty, kind of like this, or a little bit more, and then bake it for them, and they can, use it, like they would a veggie burger, which is, super nice. And then it's a lot less work trying to portion them all out like this. So I'm gonna continue doing this, and then we're going to bake them in the oven for about a half hour at 375 degrees. And you'll know, so when you're cooking, you always want to, use your time. That's an indicator, but you're gonna be able to smell these. So once you start smelling the aroma of the feta and the dill, or if you're using mint, the mint, makes your house basically smell like Greek food, which I absolutely love. And once you start smelling them, you kind of know, to kind of check on them. You know that they're about finishing up, so you'll want to do that. And then, just kind of check the color. You don't want them to get too brown, but some people like a little bit of color, which is totally, okay. I kind of like them. It mimics me frying them if I were going to ever fry them. So you can do that. I also get a lot of questions about making these gluten-free, and you can do that. You can use almond flour, which is a really great substitution, or you can always use gluten-free breadcrumbs, which I love. And they're more true to the texture of, obviously, a regular breadcrumb. So it's really kind of what you have access to and what's easiest for you to get, or what you might already have in your freezer or in your pantry. So these are about done. I've preheated my oven, so I am going to put them in and bake them off. And you can see they're really pretty. All right, we are back. My house smells amazing, so I know that they were done. My husband is hovering behind the camera, waiting to get a bite. When these finished up, I took them out of the oven and I let them sit for about 10 minutes just to firm up, because if you take them out when they're super hot, they're just gonna disintegrate on you. So I'm gonna use this offset spatula and just plate them up for you and me. I wish I could share these with you, but I know that they're so easy to make that you're gonna make them right away. And so you see that this one has, some good color. The bottom has a bit of good color, and that's kind of what you want to see when you're baking them. That's how you know they're going to be done, aside from the smell. My house smells like a Greek festival right now in a really good way, and I love it. I love the smell of dill. I love the feta, and I can't wait to take a bite, so I'm gonna take a bite. So good. So when you think about classic Greek flavor combinations, feta and dill is definitely one of them. It really comes through in this Kolokithokeftedes. I love them. Like I said, if I were serving them for a party, I would serve them with a little tzatziki. I have a recipe for sun-dried tomato tzatziki on my website, which I love because I love the contrast of the red of the sun-dried tomatoes against the green of the Kolokithokeftedes. I just want to thank you all for joining me today and learning how to make this recipe. You can find it in Opa, the Healthy Greek Cookbook. You can also find it on my website, mysweetgreek.com, along with some of my other favorite recipes. I want to thank Liz and Stephanie from Cook Like a Greek for asking me to be a part of this Greek festival. What a wonderful virtual celebration of Greek culture and food and dancing. I love it. I can't wait to watch more. And I want to thank our sponsors, Theophanis Olive Oil, and then Almost in the Sea, who have a really cute website with all these fun stuff like this bracelet and this amazing tea towel, which will transport you to Greece, even though some of us can't be there right now. I want to thank you again. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you at another festival sometime soon.